This video series will be for everyone who uses VS Code Neovim extension. And we are going to do a review of one plugin for VS Code Neovim extension, which allows us to easily manipulate multiple cursors, as well as multiple selections. We will be able to easily highlight certain parts in the code, targeting individual symbols, and then activate multiple cursors on just selected regions. Also, besides selecting just individual symbols, we will be able to highlight whole words, as well as content in between paired characters such as everything inside single quotes, and then based on those selections we can easily activate multiple cursors and edit text simultaneously in all those selected places. Besides doing all that in a normal mode, it's also possible to do it in visual mode. For example, we can activate visual block mode and then put multiple cursors on multiple lines, just like this. Also, there will be interesting options to specifically target individual characters by pressing individual keys that are highlighted in pink in this case. In the same way, we can also highlight certain words just by clicking corresponding keys, regardless of where our cursor currently positioned. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is install vscode-multi-cursor plugin for VS Code Neovim extension. By the way, we're not going to review how to install VS Code Neovim extension and how to configure it, since there is separate video series on the channel where we have configured VS Code Neovim extension in details. Before actually installing all necessary plugins, I would like to say a couple of words about VS Code extensions that I have active at the moment. So the first extension, called APC Customize UI++, this extension is used to customize interface of VS Code. Next one is called Aura Spirit Dracula theme, which is my current theme. Lua extension provides support for Lua programming language for VS Code, since we're going to work with Lua quite a bit in this series to configure Neovim plugins. Next extension is called Material Icon theme, and this extension adds a bunch of icons for folders and files in the File Explorer. And finally, the necessary extension is VS Code Neovim, which makes it possible to use Vim bindings inside VS Code. Alright, so now let's move on to the installation process. And firstly, to install VS Code multi-cursor extension, we're gonna have to install Package Manager for Neovim plugins, which is called Lazy. So to install this Package Manager, we just have to copy this code and paste it into Neovim configuration file. By the way, also make sure that your operating system has all necessary tools installed and that those tools satisfy provided versions. On macOS, the default path for Neovim configuration file is as follows: users, followed by folder of the current user, then comes .config folder, and finally nvim folder. And inside this folder we have to put Neovim configuration file, which by default is called init.lua. I'm gonna open up this file in VS Code. It is not empty. All these configurations I have explained in details in another playlist, link to which will be in the video description. That playlist is called VS Code Neovim extension. So now I'm gonna paste the code to install Package Manager Lazy at the very end of this file. And then back to the documentation of the Lazy Package Manager. Here we can see which construct we have to use in order to specify which packages we'd like to install. And now once again let's open up the page for VS Code multi-cursor plugin, and in here there is a code that we have to use in order to install this plugin by using Package Manager Lazy. So I'm going to copy over this code and replace current code with just copied code. And this way we're telling Package Manager Lazy that it has to install VS Code multi-cursor plugin next time when we're gonna launch VS Code. And just to be consistent, I'm going to replace all double quotes with single quotes. And since anytime we modify this configuration file, we'll have to restart VS Code, to make it easier, I have added keyboard shortcut inside keybindings.json so that I can easily restart VS Code by pressing Ctrl-R. And now let's try it out. I'm going to press Ctrl-R. We can see that VS Code has been reloaded, and right away we're seeing some information about the packages which have been installed by the lazy package manager, which in this case only one plugin called vscode-multi-cursor. So now we'll check if installation process was successful. And to put highlight on individual characters in the code, we have to press shortcut M, C, L, and we can see that place where our cursor was positioned is highlighted now. Let's just mark a couple more places where we'd like to put cursor by pressing same keyboard shortcut M, C, L. And then to turn those marked places into multiple cursors, we just have to press M, I. As we can see, cursors appeared and we can easily edit text. Let's also check that we can mark not only individual characters, but also whole words. And we're doing it by firstly placing cursor at the word we'd like to highlight and then press M, C, I, W. As we can see, the word is highlighted. Let's do it one more time by placing cursor at another word and pressing MCIW. And then to turn those highlighted regions into multiple selection, we can press either MI or MA. After this, we end up in insert mode and can freely edit text. So that means that VS Code multi-cursor plugin has been successfully installed. Link to the repository with all configuration files from this video series will be in the video description. In the next lesson, we'll start exploring this plugin and see what it can do for us. Now that we have installed VS Code multi-cursor extension, it's time to explore some of these default keyboard shortcuts. So in this lesson, we're going to review some of these keyboard shortcuts. Let's open up VS Code. And the first keyboard shortcut will be for marking certain characters, where we'd like to create cursors. So to highlight certain characters, we have to press MCL. Let's do it a couple more times. Firstly, we have to position the cursor on a particular character and press MCL. And then to convert those highlights into multiple cursors, we have to press MA or MI. Then besides highlighting characters, we can also highlight whole words. So to put highlighting on the whole word, we have to press MCIW. In the same way, we can also highlight content within single quotes by moving cursor inside these single quotes and pressing MCI single quote, like this. And after we are ready to create multiple cursors, let's press MI and we can start editing. So now I'm going to highlight a couple of regions again to demonstrate the next keyboard shortcut. And this shortcut will allow us to navigate between highlighted regions. So to go to the previous highlighted region, we have to press opening square bracket MC. And by doing this multiple times, we're going to navigate to the previous highlighted region. And to go forward, instead of opening square bracket, we have to press closing square bracket MC. And in case we want to discard these highlights, we can press MCC. As was already mentioned in the previous lesson, besides using these keyboard shortcuts in normal mode, some of them also work in visual mode. So for example, let's switch over into visual block mode by pressing Ctrl-V. And let's say I would like to put multiple cursors on these 4 lines. Firstly, I'm doing the selection in visual block mode by using Vim motion keys, and then to create multiple cursors on all these lines, so that every selected content will receive selection, we can press MI. And there we go, this way we end up in insert mode and can start editing. So these were the main keyboard shortcuts to create multiple cursors and multiple selections. But there are some other interesting keyboard shortcuts, which we're going to review in the next lesson, because those shortcuts require us to install another plugin. I'll see you in the next lesson. There are a couple more additional default keyboard shortcuts that we haven't yet reviewed, and those are these two shortcuts. And to be able to use those, we have to install additional Neovim plugin called Flash. We're also going to install this plugin by using Lazy Package Manager. Here is an example of the code that we have to add into our configuration file to install this plugin. So I'll basically copy the name of this plugin and paste it into this table that we are passing into setup method in the configuration file, so that next time we're going to launch VS Code, Lazy Package Manager is going to install all uninstalled plugins, which in this case is only one plugin, Flash, because another one, vscode-multi-cursor, is already installed. So I'm going to reload VS Code by using keyboard shortcut Ctrl+R. As we can see, Lazy Package Manager has installed Flash. And now let's see if it works and try these keyboard shortcuts. The first one is MCS, and if we're gonna press this sequence of keys, we'll end up in such mode where we can press any character, and all such characters that we have just pressed will be highlighted. And if I want to quickly highlight some of those characters, I just have to press key, which is shown highlighted in pink, right next to that letter L that I'd like to highlight. So for example, let's highlight letter L next to H and next to J letters. To do so, I only have to press H and J, and as we can see, highlighting was created. Let's also put highlight on the last letter L. I'll have to press Q in this case. And to quit this mode, we have to press Escape. Now that we have the highlighting, to create multiple cursors, we only have to press MI. And as for the other keyboard shortcut, it works in the same way, but besides highlighting certain characters, we can highlight certain words. To enable this mode of highlighting by words, we have to press sequence of keys M, C, W. And now to highlight certain words, I'll have to press first letter of the word that I want to highlight. For example, let's say that I want to highlight words that start with letter C. So I'll press C, and as we can see now, I have an option to highlight all words that start with letter C. For example, let's highlight the word config. To do it, I need to press the character that is highlighted in pink right to the config word, which is G. And let's also highlight tag CR. For this, I'll have to press Q, as we can see. And there we go. Now to put multiple cursors on those highlighted regions, I'll have to press MI, as always. Let's try it out one more time. So firstly, to activate highlighting by word, we need to press sequence of keys M, C, W. And then we have to specify the first letter of those words that we wish to highlight. For example, letter L. And by the way, to quickly toggle highlighting of the first match, we can press Enter. And by pressing Enter, the highlighting will be toggled. And in addition to the first word leader, I'm also going to highlight the third word leader by pressing G. And let's also highlight the last word left by pressing H. And just like that, we have put highlighting on the desired words. So now to enable multiple cursors, let's press MA or MI. And the difference between MI and MA is that when pressing MI, the cursors will be added at the beginning of highlighted words, and by pressing MA, cursors will be created at the end of highlighted words. So in this lesson, we have reviewed a couple of additional interesting ways how we can create multiple cursors. We can quickly create multiple cursors on certain characters as well as on certain words, regardless of where cursor is positioned at the moment. And to make it work, we had to install additional Neovim plugin called Flash. Link to the repository with this configuration file will be in the video description. When using VS Code Neovim extension, some default VS Code keyboard shortcuts don't work as expected. For example, keyboard shortcut Command D. Usually this keyboard shortcut is used to add selection to the next similar word. For example, if I'll press Command D several times while having my cursor at the word Vim, all next occurrences of this word will be highlighted. But just because we are currently in the normal mode of Vim, once we start editing, we can see only the first occurrence, and the selection was basically removed from all other occurrences, which is not the expected behavior. And the same goes with another keyboard shortcut, Command-Shift-L. By default, this keyboard shortcut in VS Code is used to select all similar words at once. So to make these keyboard shortcuts work properly when using normal mode of Vim, I'm going to add a couple of additional remaps. The first one will be active in 3 modes: normal mode, visual mode, as well as insert mode. Here we're going to redefine behavior for keyboard shortcut Command D. And anytime this keyboard shortcut will be pressed, we're going to run the following code. We're basically calling method addSelection to next find match on the cursor subject, which we're going to define soon. And the same goes with another keyboard shortcut. I'm going to copy this block, paste it one more time. In here, let's redefine keyboard shortcut Command-Shift-D. And this shortcut will be used to select previous similar word, which is basically an opposite keyboard shortcut to Command D, which selects next occurrence of the similar word. In this case, we have to reference method called addSelection to previous find match. And finally, let's add one more definition for Command-Shift-L keyboard shortcut. This keyboard shortcut is going to select all similar words at once. And for this, we're calling selectHighlights method, like so. Alright, but now the object cursors is not defined, so we're gonna have to create variable cursors right here and initialize it in the following way. We're basically requiring our plugin vscode-multi-cursor. But unfortunately, all these remaps are not going to work just yet. We have to add corresponding remaps into keybindings.json. Let's open up this file where all VS Code custom keyboard shortcuts are defined. And just because we're using VS Code Neovim extension, we need to forward all those keyboard shortcuts such as Command D or Command-Shift-D to Neovim, instead of letting VS Code handle those commands. And we are doing it in this way. So anytime we're going to press Command D, we're going to forward this keyboard shortcut to VS Code Neovim extension. Only when VS Code editing area is in focus and Neovim is initialized. And the same goes with other keyboard shortcuts. I'm basically going to duplicate this definition a couple more times. In the second case, we're doing this for the keyboard shortcut Command-Shift-D. And finally, we'll have to do the same for another shortcut, Command-Shift-L, to highlight all similar words at once. So now anytime we're going to press either of those keyboard shortcuts, VS Code is not going to handle them, but instead it is going to send those keyboard shortcuts to Neovim. And now let's try it out. As always, after modifying init.lua, we have to reload VS Code in order for changes to take effect. And if I'll try to press Command D several times, as we can see, the next occurrence of the word Vim receives selection. And then we can freely edit all these selections at once, instead of editing only first selection, like before. So Command D now behaves as expected. Let's also try if Command-Shift-D also works. As you can see, it does. And finally, to select all occurrences of the word Vim at once, let's press Command-Shift-L. And it also worked. So we have properly synced these 3 keyboard shortcuts with Neovim. Let's continue in the next lesson. Link to the repository with all configuration files will be in the video description. In case you would like to redefine some of the default keyboard shortcuts provided by the VS Code-Multi-Cursor plugin, in this lesson we're going to take a look at how to do this. So by default, most keyboard shortcuts start with combination MC. I'm going to duplicate this block of code and assign additional keyboard shortcut, which will be active only in normal and visual modes. So in addition to press MC to activate vscode-multi-cursor commands, I'm going to assign so this keyboard shortcut will also be responsible for creating multiple cursors. And in order for this to work, we also have to add additional argument, like this. Let's also assign additional keyboard shortcut to discard multiple cursors. By default, MCC is used. I'm going to use MCM, and this shortcut will only be active in the normal mode. Here we have to use command called cancel. Remember that after modifying init.lua file, we always have to restart VS Code in order for these changes to take effect. So I'm gonna do it by pressing Ctrl R, the shortcut that we have defined earlier in this series. And now let's try to use new keyboard shortcuts to create multiple cursors. I'm going to press M, L, and as you can see, the character was highlighted. And to highlight whole word at once, I'm gonna press IW. It also worked. Let's also test another new keyboard shortcut to discard this selection. I'm going to press MCM, and as we can see, highlighting was removed. And by the way, as for keyboard shortcut Command D, by default, whenever we're gonna press it several times while being in a normal mode, it is going to highlight similar words, but at the same time, it is also going to create selection on all those words. But just because the same effect we can achieve by firstly activating insert mode by pressing key I and then pressing Command D several times, we'll get the same result. The next occurrences of this word will be highlighted. So I will add additional entry in here and assign a little bit different behavior for the Command D shortcut. This shortcut will only be active in the normal mode. And here I'm going to type the sequence of characters that I would like to run when pressing Command D in the normal mode. The idea here is that I would like to create multiple cursors without highlighting words in the normal mode, because currently when pressing Command D, occurrences of similar words are highlighted. So what I'm gonna write in here is this. Firstly, I'm going to put sequence of characters used to put highlighting on the particular word, which is MCIW, and then to quickly jump to the next same word, we'll have to press star, which is a default key in Vim to jump to the next occurrence of the same word. And then I'll switch over to command mode by pressing colon and type nohl command followed by enter. Alright, eventually to make this work, we have to specify additional argument, like so. Now I will manually reproduce this sequence of keys. So firstly we have to position the cursor on a particular word and press MCIW. The word gets highlighted, and then to quickly jump to the next occurrence of this word, we'll press asterisk. The cursor is jumped, but at the same time all words keymap have received highlighting, which we will discard by activating command mode by pressing colon and typing the command nohl and pressing enter, and the selection was removed. So after doing all this, I'm going to reload VS Code in order for changes to take effect. And let's see now what is going to happen when we're going to press Command D. I'm going to position the cursor on the keymap word and press Command D a few times. And now as we can see, instead of adding selections on those words, they were highlighted, which gives us opportunity to add additional selections. For example, let's also highlight word cancel. I'm gonna position the cursor on the word cancel and press MCIW. And don't forget that we also have an ability to add cursors on the particular characters by pressing MCL. And eventually, when we are ready to create multiple cursors, all we have to do is to press MI. So from now on, when we're going to press Command D while being in a normal mode, instead of adding selections to similar words, they will be highlighted. So we can additionally highlight some other words. But if we're going to press Command D while being in insert mode, we're going to get previous behavior of the Command D shortcut, which is selecting the next occurrences of the word. Alright, that's it for this lesson. At the end, I'm going to remove these two additional keyboard shortcuts. Let's continue in the next one. In case you're not satisfied with default colors of the highlighting, we can easily redefine those colors. And in this lesson, we're going to take a look at how to do this. So firstly, I'm going to add a comment in here, which means that everything that comes after this line pertains to vscode-multi-cursor plugin. So basically, to redefine any color, we can use the following method, Neovim set HL. And to know which colors we can override when it comes to vscode-multi-cursor plugin, we just can scroll down to the very bottom of this page, where we can find a couple of highlights. And those are the names that we can use to override colors. I have already prepared colors that I would like to assign, so I'm basically going to use those names and write the following in order to override colors. Here I'm assigning color to the background of the selection, as well as color of the text of the highlighted region. And I'm gonna do the same and override another color vscode-cursor range. In this case, I'm gonna use the same colors. And now to see if it worked, we have to reload VS Code for these changes to take effect. And let's highlight some regions. From now on, everything that we are going to highlight by using the shortcuts of vscode-multi-cursor extension will be highlighted in such purple color, which better matches my current color theme. But what about Flash integration? As you may remember, in one of the previous lessons, we have installed plugin called Flash, which allows us to quickly add highlight into certain characters by pressing MCS, or certain words by pressing MCW. In this case, as you can see, colors have not been changed. And the only color that has changed is the color of the highlight, which appears after we'll press certain character. But to be able to change colors of the Flash plugin itself, we have to configure it separately. So let's copy this chunk of code for overriding the color right here. And to know which colors Flash plugin allows us to customize, we have to take a look at its page on GitHub. And in here we can see a list of all available colors that we can override. I will redefine a couple of colors from this list, particularly color called Flash Label. All the color codes I have already prepared up front, so I'll simply use it in here. And let's redefine a couple more colors in the same way. The second color name will be Flash Match. Let's change its code. And finally, the third color is called Flash Current. And I'm picking all those color names from the list on the Flash documentation page. So to see the result, we have to reload VS Code. I'm going to press MCS to activate mode to highlight certain characters. And right away we're seeing that those colors were changed, which I think better match my current color theme. So by now we have reviewed most of the things which vscode-multi-cursor plugin offers us. We have seen how to use default keyboard shortcuts, how to override them, how to override colors, and we have even reviewed how to do Flash integration with this plugin. So we have covered quite a bit of things. Link to the repository with the final configuration file will be in the video description. I hope it was helpful. With that, we are finishing this series.